Hi, you're listening to the Reinvention podcast. I'm Aaron Anderson, and I'm here with my lovely ho-host.
This is better. I like
Accurate.
this one. Yeah, let's keep it.
And that's what we're going to use. We're going to start with that one. Hi, you're listening to the Reinvention podcast. I'm Aaron Anderson, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Tara Cortland.
Hey, you got it right this time.
And we're here with our lovely guest, Micah Edwards.
I was almost a host.
You were almost a host. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having
if
me.
you guys want to host it, I'll be the guest.
You
That's
could.
fine too.
You could.
Yeah.
What I want to talk to you about, you work in computers.
Correct.
You are also a professional improviser
Also correct.
and a professional author.
Mostly correct.
You're a published author.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay. English, then computers, then improvisation, then authorship.
Actually, it started with computers until I realized I'd gone to William & Mary, which was not exactly on the cutting edge of things.
So you're always interested in computers.
Yeah, I was, back when the dot-com boom was a thing, I was a webmaster while I was in school.
Okay.
And I had a great plan to become a webmaster when I got out of school, and the internet had a great plan to have a dot-com bubble.
Right.
And so when I got out of school, there were very few webmaster jobs because I missed my window.
So you were interested in computers since you were a kid.
Absolutely.
I actually have, since I know Micah's mother very well, I actually have heard the story of Micah having been grounded and forbidden to use computers as a small child until they needed him to fix their computer and
wait.
had to unground him from no computers because they couldn't fix the computer.
All right. So here's our first mystery, because this is interesting to me. Most people who study English are just dying to study English, and then they get into computers because they realize English has no money. You were interested in computers and then studied English. Why?
Because getting a good grade in computers is tough. You've got to do all the hard work, and it's like very verifiable. If you write your code and it doesn't work, then they can see it doesn't work. If you write a paper and the thesis is no good, you can argue about it until it becomes good.
Oh, that's good. That's
And
good.
I'm great at arguing.
So it's really math and like absolute truths.
Absolutely.
Okay. Why does everybody tell me that you're in the CIA?
Obviously, it's a joke that I pass around because certainly if I were in the CIA, I wouldn't tell anyone that.
Gotcha. But you travel lots of different places and work on things that no one understands. And
Correct.
so why do you think she's in the CIA?
He works for some kind of defense contractor, and he does something with computers that he doesn't talk much about. Nobody really understands. And at one point, he was shipped to the Middle East for a year. So,
I was grounded.
But you're definitely not in the CIA.
Correct. I'm officially not in the CIA.
And if you were in the CIA, you would have been told not to admit that you were in the CIA.
Correct. If I were in the CIA, I would give you a subtle wink or something to clue you in right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. You just winked, by the
Oh,
way.
shoot.
Just
Making
making sure.
I got something in my eye.
So what do you do in computers?
So these days, I'm a database administrator. The
Right.
path has gone, general messing around with computers. Through strange series of coincidences, became a database administrator.
Okay.
So I am a computer nomad.
Yeah, but you have what most people in the arts would think of as a real job.
Yes.
Then why improvisation?
It's a very good question, and I don't have a very good answer to it. The short answer is because years ago, I got really afraid of getting into a rut and never getting out of it. There had been a period of about a month or so where I suddenly realized that I had done the exact same thing every day, that I had gotten up, I had gone to work, I had come home, I'd sat on the couch, I had fallen asleep, and I was going to do the same thing possibly for the entire rest of my life.
So you're telling me that database administrators can fall into a rut?
You wouldn't think so. And then frankly, if you saw the database I work with, you definitely wouldn't think
Okay.
so. And it was not a thing I cared to do. And so I started just making random changes to my life for the sole purpose of breaking things and seeing how things came back together.
For real?
Oh, absolutely.
So you started experimenting on your life?
For several years, I had a thing called Do Something Different Day, which was every Thursday. I would go out and do something I'd never done before to find out what it was like.
Really?
Yeah, I did it for 2 years, I think.
He got everybody else into it too. A whole bunch of people did it.
That's do something. What was it?
Do Something Different Day.
Do something different day.
Yeah.
But you had a conscious thought. I may fall into a rut. I don't want to do that. Do something different.
Exactly.
How many things did you go through before you hit improv?
Improv, I think, wasn't actually one of those. It was just once I did Do Something Different Day for, I think it was 2 years, so about 100 of them. And because it was every week.
So what were some of them?
Oh,
What were some of the
gosh.
more notable ones
Let's see.
or the stranger ones?
There's one where I decided to teach myself how to do a standing flip, which was mainly notable for the number of I was trying to do it with a camera that just took pictures on a 5-second timer.
Uh-huh.
So I was trying to get pictures at my best guess at 5 seconds while I was hopefully in the air.
Oh, okay.
So there's a really great photo set of just, often nothing.
Right.
Sometimes like an arm. A lot of them of me laying on the ground having missed. I did land one by the end.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, just that was that one. One was just building a house of cards. One was learning Esperanto, which stuck for as well as learning a thing for 6 hours is going to do.
Right.
But I know bits of Esperanto now.
And then eventually you found improv.
Well, so improv was the entire point of Do Something Different Day was not to do something once a week and not think about it ever again. It was to break the mindset that had caused me to fall into a rut in the first place. And so improv was a side effect of that. I'd gone to see Comedy Sports back when I was in high school. I knew they existed. I randomly wandered across a website ad for them saying, hey, we're having auditions in 3 months.
But you had never done improv as a kid or anything like that.
Nope. And I almost chickened out when I got there. I got to the parking lot and I sat in my car and I thought, no one knows I'm here. And if I turned around right now and went home, no one would ever know that I chickened out.
But you got up the courage to get out of the car and go into place.
Well, what I knew is I would always know if I turned around away.
And then you just kept at it?
Yeah. I routinely keep going at things because there's no good reason to quit.
You've been doing improv and now you teach improv.
So it's all in the same thing. Basically, if you keep doing things long enough, then people assume you must know what you're doing. And
Right.
they start asking you questions.
Right.
Other people see them asking you questions and they start to believe that you must know what's going on.
And that's Comedy Sports here in
Yes.
Richmond. And then you are also a published author.
Yes.
Your first book was a children's book about Edgar Allan Poe, the most obvious children's book topic
Correct.
of all time.
Yeah, it started as a joke because back in the day of LiveJournal, when I maintained random online nonsense and I would write things there every day, one of the ones on the way to work, I decided that Edgar Allan Poe would do well as a children's story. And so I wrote a 225 word rendition of The Fall of the House of Usher, which I called Ricky's Spooky House.
Ricky's Spooky House.
Yep. And I thought it was very funny, and so did my friends. And then I ignored it for 10 years. And I genuinely don't know why I decided to make it a book. I'm sure if I dug back through my notes, I'd find something that made me think of it. But someday I went, you know what? I bet I could make this a book.
But you did it as a sort of a joke for your friends.
Absolutely.
And then it sort of just stuck with you that, this might actually be a
So,
thing.
fake story. Micah and I actually met when he asked my children to be in the promo video for Ricky's Spooky House.
It's true. We didn't talk for a long time because they couldn't pronounce my name correctly. It was very offensive. They called me Micah Edwards.
That's how Micah and I met. For fake.
For fake?
For fake.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you also are in the CIA. That's your cover story?
Yeah, that's my cover story. That's how Micah and I met.
Now, it's an illustrated book.
Yes.
Are you an illustrator?
I am not remotely. So there was a Kickstarter for this, as there so often is. And one of the things I put up for a stretch goal on Kickstarter was that I would do my own watercolor illustrations of the book so people could see what might have happened if I hadn't if I hadn't gotten money to get someone else to do this.
Okay, wait. A Kickstarter. So let's back up.
All right.
So you've written essentially a treatment of it on LiveJournal.
Yes.
For fun.
Yes.
It eats at you, or it's at the back of your mind that maybe this would be a book. And then at what point did you say, I'm really going to make this a book?
Well, so this wasn't, I didn't add anything to it. It didn't become a chapter book. This is it's a children's book there were the full page pictures and large print words. So the 225 words is all 16 pages of this board book.
And then you thought, I can make this into a book, but it has to be illustrated, and that's going to cost money, though.
Correct.
How did you figure out so I'm interested in the business logic behind this.
Logic doesn't enter into this. This was a business hobby because it seemed like a very fun idea, and I don't mind risking other people's money at all, which I think is the major idea behind Kickstarter.
Right.
Does this...
Micah had a lot of friends, and they were all monetarily interested in seeing this happen.
So was this just an extension of Do Something Different Day?
Everything I've done since I started Do Something Different Day is an extension of Do Something Different Day.
So this was sort of an outgrowth where this isn't just building a house of cards. This is writing a story about a haunted house of cards that comes crashing down, and then taking that to the next level and taking that to the next level.
Absolutely.
And then, so how many was the first run?
Well, there's only been one run because I don't recall, let's say 1,000 copies, of which about half went to the Kickstarter, and the other half I've been slowly selling at conventions and Amazon and
So you still have some of these books lying around?
I absolutely do.
That was the first book.
Yeah, I believe it was.
And now you have many.
Right. So I've always liked writing. And it's why I maintained a live journal for far too long and other things like that. But the only thing I like more than writing is not writing. I've often said that I have two hobbies, which are writing and avoiding writing.
Right.
And I'm only ever doing one. And so for every Friday morning for the last half decade, I've been getting up at 5 a.m. to go write another 2,000 words in whatever my current serial is.
So you just crank them. You're just like, I'm gonna do this by sheer determination and discipline.
Absolutely. I have discipline's a real hard word for anything I do.
Habit.
Spite, I think, is closer.
So, okay, probably everyone has had a book that runs through their head, right? I'm going to write a book. One of these days, I'm going to write a book, or I want to write a book, or just even on just one night you're with somebody and somebody tells you, hey, you should make that into a book. You have this
All the time.
all the time.
Everybody tells me all the time.
Everyone tells you need to write a book. So
Yeah.
probably everyone has the idea, or at least the theory of a book. But you've gone past that woulda, shoulda, coulda aspect into the actual writing them, finishing them, publishing them, and then distributing them.
Yes. So again, most of my stuff is self-published through Amazon.
Okay.
And what that means is if I wanted to be a marketer, I could absolutely do that. And I would, it's all available online. Anyone could buy it, but no one's going to know about it because Amazon is full of millions of books. And so if I cared, there's a lot I could do to market the books, get them noticed, get that out there. But I would have to become a marketer.
Mhm.
And that's not a job I am in any way interested in. I would rather write books and have no one ever read them than pick up a new side gig as a marketer, even for 10 hours a week, because I would hate that. And it would turn what's a fun hobby into a thing I resent.
So your distribution network is Amazon.
Absolutely.
Do you have any other distribution besides Kickstarter and convention? No, you say conventions. What kind of conventions?
So back in the before times, before the pandemic shut everything down, there were nerd cons all over the place. I met my wife when she was living up in New Jersey, and she was performing with a troupe up there that regularly went to a convention called Wicked Fair.
By you say performed, you mean improv or?
Oh, no, she was doing burlesque at the time.
Okay.
And the White Elephant Society is one of the mainstays of the Wicked Fair. So I would go to Wicked Fair every year, and Wicked Fair is full of nerds. Nerds really enjoy board games. They enjoy books, and they enjoy, this is a lot of steampunk and that kind of aesthetic too. But the vendor hall always had large amounts of books and board games on top of everything else, which I always appreciated. And there was one author there, C.J. Henderson, who was he was always at every Wicked Fair, and his entire job was exactly the thing I never wanted to do. He was marketing himself. He wrote the books, but then he was at every convention, and he was making a living at his table.
Selling self-published books
Yep.
at conventions.
Absolutely. And he was published through a number of, like a lot of this stuff, you get into anthologies with other artists. And so some of them are published under actual publishing houses, and some are published under other people's self-publishing imprints. And they're all around various places. But in the end, I've got the rights to sell any of my books. And so if I wanted to, I could start hitting those tables.
Wait, can you? I need more information on this whole nerd culture. Not that I'm not a nerd, but
You're looking at me like I have
Yeah,
a
I think
lot
you're-
of
yeah.
knowledge beyond watching burlesque dancers at nerd conventions.
yeah. So tell me what a nerd convention is. Like, is there a nerd fest? I mean, so there's the Catskills, right? There's whole, as a performer or someone in the arts, there's a whole circuit that you can go on. There's a
Yes.
speaking circuit.
It's
There's
not as much fun as the nerd circuit.
What's the nerds?
So you've got, so the ones that you would have heard of are like Comic-Con, right? Like
Okay.
everyone's heard of Comic-Con,
Dragon
right?
Con.
Dragon Con, yeah. So stuff like that. So for Penzic,
Okay.
right? Like your wife goes to Penzic,
Right.
right? For the medieval reenactment, also a nerd convention,
Okay.
just with tents instead of hotel rooms.
And you're
right?
saying that there's a lot of overlap.
There's a
between
huge amount of
Comic-Con
overlap,
and-
right? There's a huge amount of overlap. So Wicked Fair, yeah. So his wife is a burlesque dancer and a professional statue,
A professional statue, a
A
storyteller.
storyteller.
Yeah, no, she has
all
a
kinds of things. Yeah,
long list of credentials.
yeah. And so she would get paid to perform at these things.
I had
people
no
pay
idea
a
this was a
fee
thing.
at the door to go in, and then might also pay additional fees for individual performances and stuff.
I do stage combat, right?
Right.
Sword fighting and stuff. And there are people who make a living going to Ren fairs, right?
Yeah,
they create an
like
act
that.
and they go to Ren fairs.
Right.
And there's a subculture of people who go to Ren fairs.
Yeah. So think like that kind of thing, but with hotels instead of tents.
And there's a whole series of conventions that you can go to.
Oh, absolutely. And bands, all sorts of things.
And people and at least one guy actually makes a living. Oh, this is like fanfic with what's the 50 Shades of Grey started as like a
Yes.
fanfic
Twilight.
Twilight, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Was she like? Is that sub like people? I don't think I understand.
I don't understand your question, and you're looking at me like I'm a Twilight fan, which is making me nervous.
I don't understand the economics of fanfic.
You don't understand the economics of costumes and sex.
I mean,
All right, when you put it that way,
I need you to. I need you to focus here. We're talking about costumes and sex.
and nerds.
right. If you want to know who makes money at a nerd convention, it's the people who have the corset booth, and they bring in the guy who spends all day working at a computer lab, and they go, "Boy, your wife looks really good in this $400 corset, but she'd look even better in this $600 one." And he goes, "Well, she sure would."
I'm having.
You
Everyone
see
who's
how this
listening
works,
right now,
right? Yeah.
I'm having an epiphany. So no, I mean, one of my friends is a professional sword. Technically, he's a cutler. He takes swords and makes the handles and things like that, and makes them all pretty.
Okay.
But he also made sheaths. So he started learning how to do leather. And he made a living selling swords to a subculture of people who sword fought, and then a subculture off of that for people who just wanted swords. But it turns out there's another subculture of people who want things made out of leather.
Yes, there is.
And he was able to make a very good living making leather things and vastly diversify his dating pool
Yes.
I bet he was.
after his divorce.
Yes.
Right? So these are these interlocking
Yeah. I need you to just think of this as sex and costume convention.
sex and costume.
And there's a whole
conventions.
bunch of different kinds
Well,
of
that
them.
sounds way better
There's
than
a whole
Nerd
bunch of
Fest.
different specific types like Comic-Con or like Dragon Con or like Wicked Fair, but they're basically all sex and costume conventions.
The important thing, though, is you have to keep calling it a nerd fest or a nerd con, because otherwise you get people there who go, "Oh, sex and costume, I'll be there."
Right.
No,
and
no,
we don't want
quit
this guys.
appropriating
Right.
my culture.
Yeah.
Right. So
Which
there,
is sex and
but so
costumes.
so it's sex and costumes, but it's couched in comic books or it's couched in something
The
else.
important thing is it's sex and costumes for the sort of people who also go, "Wow, I would love to read this random book by an author I've never heard of."
Right. No, so
And that
it's,
really is an important
It is
difference.
sex and costumes, but the only people who are going to get laid are people who really want to talk to you about that character from the book number 3 in the thing, and he was on that 4th panel on page 4.
It's true. This is how you
That's
get
what I'm
someone-
dressed, right? Like that's so. Yes, if you just walk in and be like, "I hear there's sex and costumes," they're gonna be like, "Get your ass out of here!" Like you're tourists.
So you got to
Like,
put in the time.
You got
You got to put in the time.
Yeah.
You put in the sweat equity
right
in order to be able to reap the benefits.
This takes
of-
work. You have to actually be into the topic enough to be worth it, because otherwise you just spend a lot of money on a costume and travel in a hotel thinking you're going to get laid, and you're not.
I had no idea this was a thing.
No, you want to actually be into the thing.
So what is Wicked? What's the Wicked?
Well, so Wicked
convention?
Fair kind of fell apart, but that was just the name of the one for a while. There's one much closer to home called MarsCon, which MarsCon and RavenCon. RavenCon was in Richmond for a lot of years, and I think they kind of merged a couple of years back. If you get angry notes,
So these are largely
I have a story
regional.
about. I have a story about Micah at Reinvention.
Okay. Oh, I want to hear this.
Oh, wait, I
So-
know the story.
So Micah was doing. He was emceeing the auction at RavenCon, and one of our other friends was selling board games there, and Micah's wife was performing, and so I went to RavenCon for the first time with my wife, and a whole bunch of us went, and we sat in on the auction, and Micah's emceeing, and Mike is cute and he's funny and stuff. So as he's auctioning stuff, and I'm kind of like a little blushy about Micah and everything, he's auctioning something, and I start bidding on it. Right. And it had something to do with Lord of the Rings. And I like Lord of the Rings, but
Right.
I wasn't really paying that much attention to what it was. Anyway, I ended up buying these movie theater displays for Lord of the Rings that wouldn't fit in the car. They were so big. It was an entire Hobbit hole door that was big.
Oh, one of the big things that goes on the lobby.
giant things that they put in the lobby, but it was too big. It was not only too big for my car, it was too big for the living room. We had to move it out into the sun porch because it was too tall, along with a Gandalf that we had to like drop his head down and shorten him because he was way too tall for the seat. Like it was this whole giant thing. And my wife is like, "You stupid idiot. Like, what the hell are you
So
doing?"
that thing was
anyway.
So there's a whole
and it also came with no instructions. There were no instructions
course
with it.
not,
There were
'cause it was-
there were
because-
900,000 pieces and no instructions. So me and a bunch of my friends spent days on the internet looking at pictures from movie theaters of these displays set up, and then trying to figure out from the photos of different movie theaters how to put these things together.
So this thing wasn't made to be sold. It was made as a production aid for cinemas. And then
Right.
somebody took it and sold it on a secondary market.
Correct. Yes.
And that eventually made it to
Made its way to RavenCon, where Micah raffled it off to me because he was cute and I wasn't paying much attention.
That's hilarious.
I agree.
So, it's interesting. It's all these ecosystems,
Yeah.
right? It's all these interlaced ecosystems.
Yeah.
So you started publishing for that ecosystem.
I started publishing so I could quit saying I was going to write a book, because there's a thing I read recently that I forget the author, but he said he was at the doctor a while back, and his doc said, "Oh, you're an author. I've been thinking of writing a book someday." And so he said, so I replied, I've been thinking about taking out medicine. And that's it. No other job do people go, oh, I could do that.
Acting
Well,
is another one.
Fair.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
right. The arts often have that problem.
Right.
Everyone-
Anyone in the arts.
My fifth grader could paint that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything in the arts, people
Yeah.
think I could do that.
No, totally fair.
Right. We get a lot of things where people say, we'd like you to play at our wedding, and it'll be good exposure.
Right.
Right. And that's great because my rent is 7 exposures. Right. So computers wanting to do something different with your life, going into improv, going into writing. You also took up things. So now this is starting to make more sense to me, because I've also heard you like chess boxing or have tried chess boxing.
Yep, I did. I'm 1-1. I won the first match, and I came back, and I did not win the second match, and I decided I was done.
To the same guy?
No. I could have taken the first guy again. The problem was the second guy was an actual boxer who didn't know how to play chess, but he did know how to delay to the full 30 seconds for each move, so he didn't get disqualified. And it turns out I didn't have enough time to beat him in chess, and he definitely had enough time to beat me in the ring.
Right. So chess boxing, explain this, because this is fascinating.
The way we did it was we had a 3-minute round of chess and 90 seconds of boxing, but each move had a 30-second maximum limit on it. So you couldn't just sit there and deliberate your move for the entire 3 minutes. But you could deliberate for 29 seconds, which is what the guy who was fighting the second time did. So he only had to make 6 moves.
Right.
And then he could wail on me, and he was much better at combinations than I was at not getting hit by them.
And so did you lose by knockout?
No, technically, I lost by the ref going, listen, this is embarrassing for everyone.
So it was a TKO.
Yes.
So-
It was a TKO. Referee, stop it.
So I had only ever heard of chess boxing from Micah, but then years after this, I was in Prague and there was a big banner hanging outside of a building inviting people to come sign up for their chess boxing league. So
yeah,
apparently it's a thing.
Well, and here's the fun extra bit, which you may not have pictured in my second chess boxing match, because I actually just remembered this. So that was on the day of the Richmond Zombie Walk. And I wasn't going to miss that just because I was chess boxing.
What's a zombie walk?
The Zombie Walk is a thing that a friend of mine started about a decade and a half ago now, which is down in Carytown. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You dress up as zombies,
And you walk.
and you shamble up Carytown, and you shamble back down Carytown, and you go home. But in between, you scare everyone in the can-can.
Okay.
And it's great.
But you lost that day?
Well, so I'd been to the Zombie Walk first, and I didn't have time to get out of makeup. So I was, in fact, boxing dressed as a zombie.
How could you get stranger than chess boxing? Chess boxing is a zombie. Maybe you could start that one. That could be a new thing.
It's much slower. And the chess is mainly just people knocking pieces over and hoping for the best.
And you've done the Goofy Run at Disney?
The Dopey Challenge.
Dopey Challenge.
So the Goofy Run is one. The Disney has runs every year. It's the
I like that you said please, like anyone would do that. Please don't confuse those.
Yeah,
One is very prestigious.
right. So there's 4 different races on 4 different days. There's a 5K, followed by a 10K, followed by a half marathon, followed by the marathon.
And you did the
Well, and so the Dopey Challenge is signing up for all 4 of them, 4 days back to back, and they all
a marathon, a half marathon, a 10K, a 5K.
reverse order. So you start with the 5K,
Oh yeah, that
and the
makes
first
more
day
sense.
you go, oh, that's fine, and the next day you go, okay, 10K is not too bad, but why are we getting up at 4:30 in the morning for this? And you do the half marathon, and it's still all right. And by that time, it's too late to get out of the marathon.
I'm tired thinking about this.
And I also stopped to go run with the Hash group down in Florida.
What's
you
a
have
hash
to, you have to ask. There you go.
What's a hash group?
All right, big tangent here. So in 1938, in Kuala Lumpur, there was a man named Gisbert, and he
Gisbert?
was Gisbert, and A.S. Gisbert, and Gisbert was working off a hangover at the local hash house and sitting around eating greasy food and regretting his choices the night
So
before.
hash like
Yes, like hash browns.
like hash browns, not
Right.
okay. Okay.
So he and his friends were all hungover and regretting it. And knowing they were going to do the same thing again later, he suggested there's a game called The Hares and the Hounds. It's an old British game, also called the paper chase. You send one guy out ahead, give him a head start, and you go chase him, try to find out where he went. He leaves a trail to show where he went, and then you can catch him or not.
Okay.
They decided to start playing this because they were going to drink more beers anyway. So at least they could they could work off some of the beer they'd already had. And they'd have an excuse to drink beer because now they've been exercising. And so it was reasonable to drink beer. And so the hash was born. And the idea is to be immature and run around and drink beer.
So you run from pub to pub?
Sometimes, yeah. There's usually we'll have opening circle and you'll drink beers there. The hare will go out, you give them a head start, and they go lay a trail wherever they want to go.
Right.
And they use chalk or flour or anything biodegradable. And then
and they actually leave a trail.
Oh, absolutely. If you look around Richmond, you'll start seeing these marks. Look around any major city because the hash, again, started in Kuala Lumpur, but it is worldwide.
And there's somebody who's running, leaving a trail,
Correct.
and other people
So
who are drinking and following.
I did this for a while. Ask me why.
Why?
Because Micah was really cute.
Was he not selling anything?
It was just cute. And so I took this up because he was doing it. And it's stupid.
Oh yeah, no, it is.
Insane. It's insanely they drink bad beer and then you have to run for miles and follow these chalk trails, which is kind of fun, except that you're jogging, which isn't fun. And then you periodically stop and sing songs and drink more beer, and then the leader runs off again and leaves you all there.
There's a structure to it.
Yes, the leader gets another head start. But so some of them are through the middle of the city, which is kind of cool. Right. And so everybody's running through the middle of the city looking for these signs on the ground or on telephone poles or whatever that, trying to figure out which way they went. And some of them are, what was the one that was like in Vietnam or something? We were like in the swamp.
Oh, you must have been on a medley of mud.
Yes, it was. And it was, poison ivy and briars. I got a leech.
Yep.
Stuck to me.
You got a leech?
We were
in Richmond?
Have you seen the picture, the old movies of Vietnam where they're wading through chest deep water with like their arms up over their heads holding it was like that, right? We're like wading through a chest deep swamp out in Sandston or something.
Yeah, we hit the Chickahominy a lot.
Yeah, that's it. It was in the Chickahominy swamp. We're wading through this thing with our arms up over our heads trying to keep whatever stuff we had dry, and for, Anyway, it was an experience.
For fun.
It was an experience. I was doing it because Micah was cute. I'm not sure why everyone else was there.
No one is cute
really
chest deep. No one is cute chest deep with their hands up.
It was quite the thing. And then everybody gets drunk and goes home covered in poison ivy and scratches and stuff.
Oh my God. And you do this for fun.
Absolutely.
He does it a lot. He's got a whole bunch of badges on his jacket.
So you did the short run, the 10K, the half marathon, the full marathon, and then decided to add one of these?
Well, no, after the half marathon, the Orlando Kennel, which is the chapter of the hash, was running that day. And the thing is, if you add up a half marathon, or you add up a 5K, 10K, half marathon, and full, what you get is 48.2, 48.6, whatever, 48 point something miles, which is not quite 50. It was very annoying to me that I was going to go to Florida, do something this stupid, and not hit 50 miles.
Why 50? Just because
It's a good round number,
okay,
yeah.
That's fair.
But I was like, well, and the hash is there. I can go. And the great thing about the hash is you can go anywhere and just go, hey, I'm in from this city. And these people will come pick you up if you need. They will take you out. They're thrilled to have this new person who's a friend they haven't met yet. And it's absolutely great. I've done this in cities all over the country, and you just show up and go, hey, I don't know you.
There are so many subcultures I did not know existed, and they're wired in.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so I went down, ran with them, got my numbers. I was not the only person doing the Dopey Challenge who was out there, who came out to the Orlando Hash that day. There was a guy from City Hash in London who was out and did the same thing.
And did you guys, when you're looking at each other, do this?
Well, because everyone knew because we were wearing the wristbands from all the races too.
Don't skip the part where then he finished the marathon and drove back from Florida to get to work in time.
Right. So I don't make good choices. I just make
Really?
bold
I hadn't noticed
choices.
that.
So this was, I didn't feel like taking Monday off of work, I guess. My plan was go hang out, finish the marathon, hang out for a couple hours afterwards, celebrate, and then drive back from Florida. And I did that, except my friends who were doing the marathon were not prepared in any way. And so they were much slower than I expected by like 2 hours. So I basically got to high five them at the finish line and then get in my car and go. And so I get in the car after running all this and I sit down and I'm like, there's a good chance my leg's going to cramp up and I won't be able to get out of the car.
That's true.
I'm going to have to stop for gas at some point. I might have to learn how to use those, press for assistance buttons in the middle of South Carolina.
And did your legs cramp up?
No, it turned out it was fine.
So what I'm sensing is a common theme of just doing a bunch of different shit.
Mhm.
So this all kind of goes back to do something different day.
Absolutely.
And your whole life is basically do something different day.
Absolutely.
And your career choice just happens to be a thing that you were interested in as a kid.
The career choice the big takeaway I've gotten from a lot of this is to accept opportunities when they appear. And opportunities appear all the time. And we kind of go, oh, I'm busy, or that's weird, or I don't know about that. A lot of times we don't even see them. To go back to the hash. The Richmond Hash has been running every Sunday since 1992. So if you've been in Richmond or any of the surrounding areas, you have seen me and my friends going by. You've heard us. We're the ones running shirtless or carrying a skull on a stick and yelling. We have whistles that carry for a mile. We are not quiet, subtle. We leave chalk marks that are there for a couple of days. And again, this goes on in every major city. I'm just speaking for Richmond because I'm here the most. Every time that happens, that's an invitation to anyone who sees it to go, what the heck are those people doing?
And go.
And go or call. Like, I often stop on the hash and people go, what are you doing? And I'll turn around and there I am, shirtless and sweaty. I'm like, all right, good news. I'm about to explain to you what's happening. And some of them show up and some of them don't. Our last Sunday, we picked someone up. We were running around downtown. She'd run with the voodoo hash down in New Orleans a couple times. Heard us yelling on, which is the hash call for, I know where I'm going, everyone follow me.
Right.
But if you don't know where you are, you can yell, are you? And the hash will call back on. She heard people yelling on. She yelled, are you? Hash just started yelling back at her. She dragged us over to her house and she's like, wait, there's a hash in Richmond? I'm in.
When I started this podcast, it was mostly to talk to people who've made a different business choice, right? That there was some sort of calculated move. My life, I've gotten to a certain place. I'd like to pivot and figure out how to make more money. And usually, and I end with a question I'm going to ask you, right? What would you tell those people about doing this? But I think you just said it. I thought I was going to talk to somebody who have made logical, interesting career choices, but you're just trying to live life as full as you can.
I had a teacher in college who said, the thing these days with marriage is people get married for love and then they try to figure out the finances as it goes along. And if you look at medieval Europe, they got married for finances and then tried to figure out love as it went along. And he goes, and when you stop and think about it, a lot of marriages fall apart. The love doesn't last because the finances don't come together. If you've got good, solid finances, I think you can find the love where you need to. And it's a cynical viewpoint, but there's a lot to be said for it.
But that's how you're living your life.
My finances are solid, and now I can do what I want.
And you're just trying to find things that are fun to do.
Absolutely.
That's really kind of profound.
Thank you.
You didn't set out to do that, though.
I did not in the least.
So the question that I ask everyone to end with is, if there's people out there who are thinking about making a change, what would you tell them? Or if you could talk to your younger self, what would you say? And is that what you would say? Is that there's these opportunities, just fucking do it?
Absolutely. Listen for opportunities. And especially when you feel scared, when you go, what if it goes wrong? That's the best time to do it, because what if it doesn't?
One of the guys I just talked to, Sterling Hundley, who's an artist, he said the same thing. He said, when you're scared, run towards it.
Absolutely.
Go as fast as you possibly can towards it, and then you'll end up, he called it the clearing. He said, eventually you get to a place where no one else is gone because it's scary.
Yeah.
And then you're all by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know you were all profound like that.
It's only because of the good questioning that we got there.
I don't think there's any good questioning. So I got one other question, and then this is what we end with. If so, imagine that there's 8 people listening to this, and maybe they've thought, I'm not digging my life. I'm feeling that I may be in a rut. I know that people say you should just do this, and I know I should be brave, and I know, right? There's books and all this shit. It's all around me.
Right.
Everyone says these things, but are you different than that person? Like, is there something in you that they don't have? Like, can anybody find love after they've got their finances?
Absolutely. It's, as with all things, start small. Start with a small opportunity. One of the weird do something different days, I decided to follow the signs that are all around us. There's all sorts of, especially advertising, telling us to do things that we ignore because it's stupid. It says, call this number and give us your feedback. Follow this truck to savings. And I just did that for a day. And I was real lost, and I annoyed a lot of poor minimum wage people on the phone. But it was fun and interesting and weird and scary, because now I'm just talking to strangers who don't know why I'm there. But you start with something small and unimportant like that, because the worst way that can go wrong is that you get embarrassed.
Right.
By someone you didn't ever see before and won't ever see again. And once you realize that's okay, you can start doing bigger and weirder things.
That's really pretty cool. No, I like that. I like that a lot. Just do one thing different. And you just did it one day a week.
Yeah.
And for the rest of the week, did you just do your normal shit?
Absolutely.
But one day you were going to go outside of your comfort zone.
Right. One day I was required to. The rest of it fell into place.
I think we're going to end there. Actually, I don't know that we can get any more profound than that.
I like it.
Micah, thank you very much for your time.
And thank you for having me in.
This was way more profound than I thought it was going to be. I just thought you were going to be a cool person. I didn't think that I was going to have a new...
You thought you were just going to hear about like running and drinking beer and costume sex.
I really didn't think about it in that way, but that sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
Running,
right.
drinking beer, and costume sex.
It's not a bad life, I suppose.
This
No.
too can be you.
And scene. So I broke the cardinal rule, which is you're never supposed to stop recording when you stop, because you never know when the conversation is going to keep going. And you just said, both of you said something that is important, because we were talking about doing things in order to make money, turning your hobbies into money. And you said that that was a bad idea.
Well, I think if your hobby becomes a thing that makes money, that's great. But if you set out to monetize your hobby, you run the risk of taking away everything you enjoy about the hobby, which is it's what you do in your spare time, and you can do it or not as you choose.
Right.
I'm
And you
with him.
said that you won't write professionally.
Yeah, so I was a professional. I was a newspaper writer, and editor for, almost 20 years. Yeah, and then I went, I'm never doing this again. I'm not writing professionally. Like, you cannot. I'm not taking a job where I'm writing. So, but I do, in fact, take freelance money to write. So I take freelance money to write occasionally blog articles, and I ghostwrite things with other people's names on them and stuff. If they offer me enough money, I do it, but I hate it. I hate it. I hate that blank piece of paper staring. It's a computer screen now, but I hate that blank page staring at me. You have to write because somebody is paying you to do it, and this is your job. Think of something. Oh my
Right.
God, think of something. No, that wasn't good. Think of something else. I hate that.
But the reason I turn this back on is because I've been wrong, right? This whole podcast, I started with the idea
Uh-huh.
you could that it was a valuable thing to be able to take your spare time and make money doing it. That was the
Did
whole
Micah
idea.
just totally blow your entire life theory out of the water?
No, but it's important caveat.
Okay.
It's an important caveat because you can, right? You absolutely can do that. And
Oh,
that's the current narrative. The current narrative is that you should, right? That you should monetize your house, that it's no good doing a thing if you can't make money at it, if you can't be good at it.
Yeah, and that is, look, I like capitalism. I'm a fan of capitalism in certain broad strokes. It's clearly failing in a lot of ways, but in general, I think it's a pretty solid way to go. That said, the big draw of capitalism is that at the end, you get to quit doing it. You get to retire.
Make enough money to yeah.
You get out of the system.
Right. And you were talking, you also make board games.
Yeah.
And you don't monetize that.
No, the board games I make are for my use and my friends' use. And the process you have to go through to refine and test. I have several friends in town who make board games and have published several of them, and they're great. But I've helped them play test them, and I've seen what's changed. One of the guys put out a game. He sold the idea of the game to a company who bought it from him, and then after buying it, said, "Hey, we like everything about it, except we think there should be a rock, paper, scissors mechanic added on top of everything else." And his only option was to basically go, "Okay." And so now there's a game out there with his name on it that plays in a way he doesn't agree with.
Because he had to make some changes to accommodate whatever the thing was.
And you're giving away your name. I mean, it's the same way that Stan Lee lost control of his name in the 90s. He sold his name to a website, and then ended up no longer being able to call himself Stan Lee professionally for a number of years, basically.
No shit, I didn't know that.
I'd have to get into the details. I'm fuzzy on it, but yeah, Stanley.com was a thing during the .com boom. And when it went under, he lost the rights to Stan Lee for a while.
So this is just a quick prologue, which is I
Don't
was wrong.
monetize the thing you love if your only goal was to make money doing the thing you love.
Or your name, if you want anyone to know who you
Or
are.
if you want to be Stanley. Yeah, don't.
Because your story is not a story about somebody who set out to take their hobbies and make money. Your story is one about somebody who had financial stability and then decided to live your life.
So I'm
Absolutely.
with Micah, and I'm actually in the same position as Micah, except that I'm not as interesting in my hobbies. But yeah, so part of the moral of this story is to be upper middle class.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that. I mean, like you
It's the
need to
goal. It's
caveat
the
with that,
goal.
right? Like a lot of the story is to have been Gen X at the point at which you could still get a full-time job with benefits and all the thing and work your way up the ladder and have a reasonable income coming in, and and then have enough disposable income
Yeah.
Right.
to do the things you want to do. That's part of the moral of the
Right.
story.
Step-
And there's no way around that.
Step one, be born into a family who
Right.
picked a good school district.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
absolutely. I didn't start silver spoon, but I started, bronze spoon.
We both started fairly,
Right.
very solidly middle class.
Exactly.
Let's be
in the
clear.
middle of
You
the
have
woods.
your own China pattern, your family China
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I know Micah's family, we both grew up in those families. We both started off solidly well off. And, so that helps everything.
Well,
Right.
very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is well worth noting on this.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it.
Yeah. So Micah uses his free times to develop new hobbies like writing books and
Because you can.
Right.
Because
Because
you
I
can.
have free time.
I am in a similar situation where I've got enough income and enough not having to worry about money. I'm using my free time right now to go travel around the world and stuff. And you're like, just do what you love. I mean, it's easy when you've got money to not,
Right. If you, because you essentially have more money than you do time. You don't need all your time to be spent in the pursuit of more money.
Right.
Correct.
You have enough money
Yes.
to be able.
But now the good news about part of the moral of the story, if you're talking to college students
Some of them are.
and recent graduates, part of the moral of the story is to just get older because the money starts coming in a lot faster as you get older.
Well, and to, like I was saying, if you hit the money first and get to the hobbies later, the risk of that. My grandfather retired a multimillionaire after running his own tool and mold company, and he retired in his 50s with more money than he could ever spend, which was great for him. But he did that by working tirelessly at his factory from his late 20s until he retired in his 50s.
Yeah.
He had 3 children who his wife raised. He saw his family 30 years into the family existence. And then he spent the next 40 years of his life drinking wine and touring and doing everything he wanted to do. But that's a hefty trade to make.
Yeah.
One of my heroes is a guy named Mike Rowe. He did the show Dirty Jobs.
Dirty Jobs, right.
But he is 100% and has gone on record 100 times about that. Follow your dreams is the worst advice you could ever give anyone. That what you want, because he tells a story, and I just love this story, that there was a guy who was able to make a living selling pig shit, right? So there are pigs and pig shit, and then there are giant pools of pig shit. But it turns out there's a secondary market for that fertilizer. So he became a pig shit marketer. And he said, no one ever woke up one day and said, you know what I want? You know what my dream is? I want to sell pig shit. Like but that is, you talk about something that makes a difference in the world. This is a product that is otherwise poison, and it turns it into something that's good, and he makes money, he makes a living doing that. He said, so essentially, his point is your point. Divorce joy from money for a moment.
So, my dad always says they call it work and they pay you to show up. Right? Like,
right.
You don't want to hate your job, but your job does not, and really probably shouldn't be your reason for existence and the thing you love most in the world. Like the idea that you're supposed to get all of your fulfillment from your profession is a luxury most of us don't have, right? Like, my job's fine. I like my job just fine. It's fine. That's not where my joy and fulfillment come from.
And if you find a thing you like doing, you don't have to make money at it. You can still do it though.
Oh, absolutely. And if you make, I forget the guy's name, but the guy who wrote The Martian was doing the same way I am. He was putting up a serial, writing online. Someone found it. They went, this is great. We'd like to pay you ungodly amounts of money and turn this into a major motion picture.
Right.
And he went, okay, thanks. If you get that opportunity, sure, great. Don't turn that down. But he was writing the story because he wanted to.
So I just wanted that on the record because that's really important.
Step 1, be born well.
Be born well.
Yeah.
Yes. But you don't have to work yourself into the ground for 25 years and become a multimillionaire, right? Like just
there's a balance or something.
Well, by nature of getting older, right? If you have a job, by nature of getting older, the money starts increasing little by little every year. So you just working the same job when you're 45, you are making more money than you were at that job at 25, right? You make a little more over time. So you do, in fact, start getting paid more in your 40s than you did in your 20s.
Right. So the the question I ask everyone is, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self something, or if somebody's in it, the true answer is, if I could go back in time and tell my 20-year-old self to put $20 away a week, that's what I would.
Sure.
That's
absolutely.
like that. And I would like follow, my old self would follow my young self around and keep hitting me right? No, just put the coffee down. Just one fucking coffee.
My old self would tell my younger self to reconsider that purchase of the Hobbit door and the movie theater space.
That's right. I'm gonna go back and talk to her younger self and go bid again. Just one
No,
more.
in the same way of Micah's thing about say yes to the opportunities, I actually picked up a lot of that from Micah, where you should say yes to things. You should just be like,
well, you got that
yeah.
from improv, or did you do that before?
Improv made me a lot more of who I already was.
Okay, that's good. All right, this is probably gonna just trail off, but see, that's why you never turn the fucking cameras on. And scene. Visit reinventionpodcast.com for transcripts and other free resources.